Bienvenidos a la octava clase de este curso de inglés avanzado completamente gratis. I upload a new video every Monday and Thursday, so make sure you subscribe to my channel to receive notifications. And don't forget, you can also join my Facebook group where you can download a copy of all of my presentations, including this class, for free. Today we're going to be looking at something called hedging, forms of hedging and then hedging in academia. Let's begin. So as I said, today we're going to be looking at forms of hedging. Now the first thing you might say is, what's hedging? Well, if you look at these two different idioms in English, hedge your bets and sit on the fence, these are two different idioms to mean you're not deciding one way or another. Okay? Hedge literally is the arbusto, the hedge, the tree, the small trees that run between two different properties. Okay? It might be two farms or two houses. That is called a hedge. Okay, so literally it's dividing two properties. Okay? Arbustos, una línea de arbustos is a hedge. Okay? Another thing that would divide two properties is a fence, okay? A fence divides two properties. So if you are sitting on the fence, that means that you are not committed to this opinion or that opinion, okay? And equally, if you hedge something or you hedge your bets, it means you're not deciding one way or another. So to hedge your bets, apuestas, for example, might mean that you bet a little bit of money on this team and you bet a little bit of money on this team, to try and cover both possibilities, okay? So hedging basically is to not decide either way and to be neutral when you're speaking and writing, okay? So hedging is, as it says there, an important part of polite conversation, and it makes what we say less direct. So there are 5 different common types in everyday language, okay? You can change the tense, which we will see in a minute. You can use modal verbs to be less direct. You can use adverbs to be less direct. You can use vague language. And you can use introductory verbs. So we're going to go through each one of these point by point, okay? How to be more neutral with your language. So let's look at changing the tense or distancing, okay? So first of all, do you want to go out for a coffee is present. It's a direct question. Say, for example, there's a girl you like and you say, do you want to go out for a coffee? It's very, very direct, okay? It's fine, it's polite, it's wonderful, but it's direct. Another way of saying the same question would be to use the second conditional, right? Like you see there in the example, would you like to go out for a coffee? Would you like to go out for a coffee? It's a little bit less direct, it's still very polite, okay? Another way of saying it, if you look at the first example there in yellow, it says, I was wondering if you wanted to go out for a coffee. This is the same question, okay? The same question again. I was wondering if you wanted to go out for a coffee. Okay, so I was wondering if you wanted, look at that. That tense changes, okay? I was wondering if you wanted to go out for a coffee. Again, so this is an even more indirect way. So you have, do you want to go out for a coffee? Would you like to go out for a coffee? And I was wondering if you wanted to go out for a coffee. Okay, so there are like 3 levels of being less and less direct, okay? Again, here's another example. Did you like the surprise? Okay, that's a very direct question. I can also say, I was wondering if you liked the surprise. So what we're doing here is we're changing the tense, we're distancing a little bit. So do you want is present, would you like is second conditional, but it's still a question referring to the present. I was wondering if. So the question is using past continuous tense, right? This phrase, I was wondering if you wanted. But it refers to the present, okay? We're talking about the present. Me preguntaba si quisieras, me preguntaba si querías ir por un café. All right, so it's kind of a bit strange, but it's a very polite, very informal way of asking a question. So modal verbs, it's another way of doing it. So I can say, for example, to my friend who's making a bad decision, I can say, that is a bad decision. I'm being very direct, okay? Or I can just add a modal verb in there, okay? For example, that may be a bad decision. That might be a bad decision. Or that could be a bad decision, okay? So I'm just adding a modal to make it slightly less direct, a little bit more neutral. Because if I say that is a bad decision, that's not neutral. I'm telling you my opinion. But if I say that could be a bad decision, then I'm still being neutral. It's still possible either side, okay? I'm hedging. Again, he was guilty. He was guilty, right? So if we're talking about Michael Jackson and I say he was guilty, then you would say he may have been guilty or he could have been guilty if you want to be more balanced, more neutral, okay? And we're going to see why this is so important in academia in a moment, okay? So there we have an example in present, we have an example in past. Let's have a look at an example in present perfect. She hasn't tried hard enough, okay? She may not have tried hard enough. She might not have tried hard enough. Again, I'm putting in a modal verb there to make it more distant, to make it less affirmative, to make it more neutral. What's interesting is if you look at present tense and you put a modal verb in it, it stays present, okay? Is changes to be, but it's still present tense. With the past tense, if you're going to use a modal verb, you have to use present perfect, okay? So here we're looking at a present perfect example. It stays the same with a modal verb in it. You can go back and study our class on modal verbs if you have more questions about that. But modal verbs is a way of hedging. It's a way of being more neutral in our speech. So there we have a present example, a past example, and a present perfect example. A future example, for example, if I'm talking about Manchester United, I could say they won't win the league. Or I could say they might not, they may not. Now in this case, these are present tense sentences, but they're referring to the future, okay? You can't say will might or will may, okay? You can't have those two things together. But they might not win the league and they may not win the league. It refers to the future anyway. So that's modal verbs. That's the second option for being more neutral, being more balanced. Another way is with adverbs. Again, that is a bad decision. I can say that is probably a bad decision, or that is possibly a bad decision. Past tense, he was guilty. I can say he was potentially guilty, or he was partly guilty. Notice how these are still in past tense because it's an adverb, we don't have to play around with the tenses, okay? It's not a conflict, so we don't have to use present perfect here. He was guilty becomes he was potentially guilty. She hasn't tried hard enough. Perhaps she hasn't tried hard enough. Or she mainly hasn't tried hard enough. When I say mainly, it means like one of many reasons, okay? They won't win the league. They probably won't win the league. They possibly won't win the league, okay? Again, so I'm using adverbs here to hedge, to be more neutral. That's adverbs. Now, vague language, we've got sort of, kind of, like, sorta, kinda, quite. These are words we're familiar with because they're used for filling, right? They're filler words. So I can say that movie was boring, it was far too long. That's a very direct sentence. Or, that movie was pretty boring, it was kind of long. That movie was kind of boring, it was quite long. Okay, so I can add in those filler, vague language, kind of adverbs, adjectives, if I want to. And it makes the sentence less direct, okay? I can't remember why I put a picture of Ana de Armas there. I guess because we're talking about movies, possibly Blade Runner 2049 was quite long. It wasn't boring though, I don't think. And finally, introductory verbs. That's the fifth different type of hedging that we're looking at today. Introductory verbs like seem, tend, or look like. So instead of saying, that's a bad idea, you could say, that seems like a bad idea. That looks like a bad idea. That's kind of distancing yourself and being less direct again, okay? He regrets his actions. He appears to regret. Or it appears he regrets, okay? So these are two different ways of saying the same thing, but more distanced, okay? More neutral. He makes bad decisions. Very direct. He tends to make, okay? Tiende a hacer, o tiende a tomar. Tiende a tomar malas decisiones. Okay, so I'm saying, not like toma malas decisiones, I'm saying tiende a tomar, alright? So it's slightly less direct, slightly less affirmative. It's gonna rain, okay? I'm sure. It looks like it's gonna rain. I'm not 100% sure, but the signs are, okay? I will pass my exams. I think I will pass my exams. So here you go. You have all of these introductory verbs which help you distance and be less direct. To hedge, okay? To be less direct. It's important to know these for politeness, but also for writing, for speaking, and to be less direct, okay? Let's do an exercise. So, here I have some sentences that are quite direct. Can you help me? This food isn't fully cooked. He's not right for her in the long term. Your classes are confusing, Stuart. And the Conservatives, which is a political party, the Conservatives will win the election. Okay, so I wanted to use these 5 different types of hedging for each sentence to write the sentence again, but to make it more neutral, okay, less direct. Okay, I'm going to tell you my answers now, so if you want to stop the video, stop it now, all right? 3, 2, 1. Now, before I give you my answers, it's important to say, obviously, there is not one single correct answer. There are many different possibilities. Can you help me? So if we change the tense, we're probably going to say, could you help me? Okay, or I could say something like, I was wondering if you could help me. Okay, very, very polite way to ask the same question. This food isn't fully cooked, but with modal verbs, looks like this. This food might not be fully cooked, or this food may not be fully cooked, for example. He's not right for her in the long term with an adverb. There are many adverbs you could use. My example is this. He's probably not right for her in the long term. Your classes are confusing, Stuart, but with vague language. Again, there's many possibilities, but this is my example. Your classes are kinda confusing, sorta confusing, quite confusing, Stuart. And finally, the Conservatives will win the election, but with an introductory verb. Looks like, seems, appears. Okay, it appears the Conservatives will win. It looks like the Conservatives will win. Okay, lots of different options. These are just my answers, but there are many, many options, okay? If you want to, write them in the comments below or leave them on my Facebook page and we will try and get back to you. Okay, so that was hedging. All right, 5 different forms of hedging in everyday speech, in normal life, in speaking and writing. But now I want to look specifically at hedging in academia, because I'm imagining most of the people who watch my YouTube videos are of university age, it seems to be. So you might be thinking of doing a master's or some other qualification in English. So you're going to need to look at some examples of this in academia, okay? So we have all of the things we talked about before. Appear, think, looks like, and so on, okay? A lot of this information in this section of the presentation is coming from this website, inago.com. So, they say, inago.com, that the most common types of hedging in academia are introductory verbs, seems, appears to, and so on. Certain lexical verbs, which we'll see in a minute. Modal adverbs, so these are possibly, and so on, that we've already seen. And that clauses. So we've already seen 2 of these, but let's have a look at all 4 together. We have modal adverbs, like I said, possibly, perhaps, conceivably. We have introductory verbs, like we've seen before, seem, tend, look like, and so on. That clauses, it could be the case that, it might be suggested that, there is every hope that. And certain lexical verbs, like believe, assume, suggest, okay? But you can see here that these lexical verbs also appear in the introductory verbs list, so believe and suggest are also up here. Okay. So we've already seen these 2, but let's go through some more examples. Hedging in academia helps us express hesitation or uncertainty to be indirect or to be polite. It is the currently accepted style in academic writing, and it gives the author flexibility in his or her claims. This inherent openness leaves room for improvement and development in most fields of study. So, most academic papers are written in this form. They don't appear to be direct, okay? They are not like, the truth is this, the facts are this. Almost all academic papers of good quality are going to be, it appears that this, or the evidence suggests that this, or tends to suggest that this, okay? It's leaving things open to interpretation and not being so direct, because it leaves things open to be developed. So, government policy in this area has been a failure. That's a very strong sentence, there is no hedging. Government policy in this area appears to have been a failure. okay, that has hedging. It's using an introductory verb, appear to, okay? The data shows a correlation between the two outcomes, okay? That's quite direct. The data tends to show a correlation between the two outcomes. That has some hedging, that's not quite so direct. Hitler's invasion of Russia was the main reason Germany lost World War II. That's a big statement, it's not hedging at all. It seems that Hitler's invasion, it could be suggested that Hitler's invasion, it is widely believed that Hitler's invasion, contemporary sources indicate that Hitler's invasion, and conceivably Hitler's invasion, or Hitler's invasion of Russia was conceivably the main. So lots and lots of different ways here. We have combinations of the different colors, right? It seems that was an introductory verb. It also has a that, so it's a that clause. It could be suggested that, it's a that clause, but it has a lexical verb. The same as believed here, it is widely believed. Contemporary sources indicate, that's an introductory verb. Conceivably, that's a modal adverb. So there are lots and lots of different ways to hedge a statement. This statement, if you're a historian, is very bad because it's so sure that this is the answer. And in academia, when you're writing an academic paper, you have to be open, you have to hedge. So a better way to say it would be, for example, it could be suggested that Hitler's invasion of Russia. Okay, that's much, much better than to just start the sentence with Hitler's invasion of Russia and then conclude so strongly. Okay, an exercise for you. I want you to hedge these. So I'm going to give you some strong statements and I want you to hedge them. Here they are. The results of the study tell us that our conclusion was correct. That's a strong statement. The Industrial Revolution has had more impact on modern society than the French Revolution of 1789. In conclusion, our inquiry found that the accident could have been prevented and that local authorities are responsible for the deaths of dozens of people. Very strong. It is evident that Octavio Paz was a more important literary figure than Juan Rulfo. A very strong statement. Attitudes towards death and violence in Mexico are greatly affected by pre-Hispanic cultures and the veneration of death. Okay, so these are 5 different sentences where it's very strong, and I want you to try and hedge them. You can use any of these or a combination of these, okay? Put them in the comments, I'd love to see them, or on the Facebook page. Okay, time for an exercise. Go to point number 1 in the description to open the activity. So this is the page, it's from Oxford University Press. It has a little bit of explanation about hedging again, and here is the activity, but the activity is pretty bad. Why? Because it's asking you to hedge these sentences to make them more neutral, but it only gives you one correct answer, okay? And there are 50 different ways to hedge each sentence, okay? So the best thing to do is just to look at the sentences. Despite the number of minor problems, the scheme was very successful. Coral reefs are seriously affected by rises in sea temperature and so on. And basically just show the answers, okay? Because you're never going to be able to guess exactly what Oxford University Press wants you to write, okay? So just click show the answers and have a look at how they did it, okay? Finish the activity and I'll see you in a moment. I hope that went well. Let's continue. So that's everything I wanted to see today. Hedging. Different forms of hedging and hedging in academia. Basically how to be neutral in your language and not be so direct, okay? That was the point of today's class. Our idioms for today. We have 5 different idioms, but the first 2 we've already seen, right? Hedge your bets and sit on the fence. To be neutral, okay? To be neutral. Now, we have 3 more here which are related to boats. Sailing, navegación, okay? It's interesting. Rock the boat normally is associated with don't rock the boat, or I don't want to rock the boat. So imagine the boat, la lancha, is your company or your family and everything is calm and stable, but you decide to do this to make the boat rock, okay? To rock the boat. In that case, it means that you're making things uncomfortable or you're creating a situation, okay? You're creating a situation when everything is calm. So normally people would say, I don't want to rock the boat. Oh, I forgot to show you the examples of hedge your bets and sit on the fence. So my example with rock the boat is just be quiet, don't say or do anything to rock the boat. Don't rock the boat, okay? Don't say anything out loud. Don't let anybody know. All hands on deck is another expression from sailing. All hands on deck just means everybody needs to be working on this, okay? We need all hands on deck to get this done. So for example, if your company has a big project and you have a deadline, 2 days, 48 hours, you need all hands on deck, okay? You need to get everything, so you need everybody's help to finish, okay? And learn the ropes. To learn the ropes is to learn how to do things, okay? So for example, in a new company, a new job, you go and you learn the ropes, and somebody can show you the ropes as well. So this is John, your supervisor. He will show you the ropes. Ropes is cuerdas, right? But if you think about sailing, navegación, in old boats, they had lots and lots of different ropes to pull, and you had to learn which one corresponded to which thing. So kind of like when you get a new job, you have to learn where everything is, who everyone is, how to do things, okay? So you learn the ropes. It's a very, very common expression, and it's a really, really good one. That's everything I wanted to see in today's class. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you can get notifications every time I upload a new video on Mondays and Thursdays. And of course, you can join my Facebook group where you can download all of my resources, including this presentation, for free. Thanks for learning English with me, and I will see you next class.